Welcome to a special edition of Studio Central Face to Face. We had Matt Davis on here back a few weeks ago talking about the Battle of the Bands, and we're going to talk more about the Battle of the Bands now as the final 5 bands have been named. We have about 3 or 4 weeks before the contest officially ends with the Battle of the Bands at the historic DeSoto Theater on June 15th, but I thought we'd bring Matt back in, talk a little bit about these bands, what's going to be happening over the next few weeks, and getting everything ready for that big day on June 15th. Matt, as always, it's great to have you here. Got to do the obligatory fist bump, but I'll let you go ahead. I know it's already been announced elsewhere and probably even on our website, but go ahead and tell us, who are the final 5 bands?
Well, I'm glad to announce this anywhere anybody will listen to it, because these bands certainly deserve their due for making it to the final 5, because it's been no easy task, and perhaps in some ways this year making it to the final 5 has been even more of an undertaking than it has been in years past, because this year we've decided to monetize the voting, which we had talked about doing, the very first year, and just kind of hesitated to do it, and then decided this year, since we partnered up with Cancer Navigators, okay, we're going to give this a try and see what happens, and we did. And quite honestly, I wish we could go back in a time machine and do it every year, because it's worked out extremely well, and we've been able to raise a pretty good amount of money for Cancer Navigators throughout doing that. So the top 5 bands right now are 540 with 892 votes. They slipped in right there at the last minute and got into the top 5, and they were our runner-up last year. We've got The Strange. We have, they're in number 4 with 950 votes currently. Wolves in DC in at number 3 with 967 votes. We have the Kamikaze Dolly, and they have 1,007 votes. And then Chasing December with 1,218 votes. And the significance of that is that each one of those votes represents $1 that goes to Cancer Navigators. So at this point, we've been able to raise over $6,500 in just the online voting for Cancer Navigators throughout the voting process. And that's not over yet. That just gets them to the top 5. Now, the People's Choice Award winner will not be determined until that night, so there's still time if you want to get on there and vote for your favorite band, the bands that are remaining in the contest, to vote for them for the People's Choice, and there'll be opportunities that night as well.
Gotcha, and the People's Choice is just on how much money these bands raise, how many votes they get, correct? And of course, every vote is dollar signs behind it.
That's correct. And so if you get online and you vote, it's $1 a vote, so you can, put down $2 if you want to, or if you'd like to vote 200 times at once, you can plop down $200, and that's 200 votes for this band. And this was just a way that we could raise an additional amount of money for the cause, because this has been a fundraiser every year that we've done it. And so always we're looking for ways that we can try to make it more beneficial to the beneficiary, if you will. And this year, again, it's Cancer Navigators. So, so far, so good.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk a little bit about these bands. Obviously, probably a little bit more, I'm probably more familiar with 540 than any of the others. I believe they're from the Calhoun area, unless I'm badly mistaken. Some kids that I think either went to Gordon Central or Calhoun High School.
Maybe a mixture of both.
Yeah, maybe a mixture of that. Obviously, I believe the Calhoun Times did a feature article on them back a few weeks ago. They sneak in at number 5. You said they were the runner-ups last year. What's special about them?
Well, I tell you, man, their work ethic is tremendous, and they also have a great amount of talent in their band, and they incorporate a lot of different styles of music, and that's one of the things that you see with just about every band that participates in the contest this year, is that they are kind of an amalgam of a lot of different types of music into one. And when you look at 540, you have reggae, you've got a little bit of punk rock in there, you have some ska, some old school madness kind of stuff, and just a lot of different kinds of flavor in terms of their music. And one of the things that I really have enjoyed about working with them, like I mentioned, is their work ethic. Just to give you an example, the way that they were able to squeak into the top 5 is the night that was our deadline for the final 5 voting. They had a show, I think it was in Cartersville. Yeah. Anyway, they took up donations at the show, stopped the show in the middle of the show, went online, made a donation, and then, got themselves over that hump into the top 5, went back up on stage, played some more. Then they gave me a call to find out if they made it, and when I confirmed that they did, they went back on stage, announced it at their show that they made it, and immediately started, asking their fans to buy tickets to the show and support the cause. So it's things like that, and that's only one example. Every band that's a part of it this year, even the few bands that didn't move on to the final 5, I could share a story about each band like that, where they put their heart and soul into the contest. And I think obviously a lot of the motivation is winning the prizes that we have this year and playing at the DeSoto Theater, which most of the bands see as a prize in itself, because that's a great venue, and it's a venue that these bands really want to play. But I think a lot of it also is, everybody that you come in contact with has been affected by cancer one way or another. And so everybody that's in these bands, they have a heart for the cause, and that's also a big part of their motivation. So that's what I like about this event so much, is because you can do so much good for a cause, but then also do so much good for the arts community. And there's so many partnerships involved in it in different ways that people are moving this event along, that it's really a fun process to be a part of. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, no matter who wins, everybody wins.
Exactly. Well, I mean, already raising $6,500 for cancer, that's phenomenal. I want to talk a little bit about the event, but I also I don't want to just talk about 540. Something quick about each of these bands. You're more familiar with them than I am. What about the Strange? What can we expect from them?
Oh, the Strange, they're another one of those bands that incorporates a lot of different styles of music. They've been known to get up there, and for a contest like this, they're going to have to do things a little bit differently, but they've been known to get up there and do, some jamming and getting some good, improv kind of stuff in terms of their music, improvised music. And so you could compare them to some bands like Fish and some other rock bands, 70s rock bands, and all kind of different music rolled into one. But they're going to bring a lot of different energy to this event.
Gotcha. Wolves in D.C.
Wolves in D.C., gosh, they're another one that's kind of hard to describe in one or two words. But they take some, good American music like Bruce Springsteen, and then kind of mix it with some more modern type stuff like perhaps Against Me, or maybe The Killers, a little bit more new wave influence in that too. So there's just a lot of different kind of music rolled into one. We're starting to see a theme here, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely so. The Kamikaze Dolly.
They're very interesting. They kind of describe their music as sort of an alternative folk. So they bring some of the more alternative genre music that people were familiar with, in the early 90s and that kind of thing, and throughout the 90s, but they give a folk spin to it. So most of their music is acoustic, and they'll have like some mandolin playing going on, acoustic guitars, several people involved in the singing. So it's a band that can do a lot of different things.
Gotcha. And the final one, Chasing December.
They're one of the ones that's probably the hardest for me to describe because they've kind of taken on new life throughout the contest, because when they entered, they were an instrumental band, and so they played some kind of harder rock. Bands that I could compare them to, there's a band in the 90s called Hum that they really remind me a lot of. But throughout the contest, they acquired a singer. And so obviously going from an instrumental band to a band with a singer has kind of changed their sound a lot. And they also incorporate some of the earlier 90s kind of stuff into their set list as well. So, a lot of different types of music that are represented. And, one of the things that's cool is that when I go down this list of bands, none of them are the same at all. I mean, when you go watch this event, you're going to see 5 very, very different acts.
A lot of variety.
A lot of variety. And I think that's awesome. A great thing, because I think it shows a good cross-section of what our community has to offer in terms of local music.
Definitely. And you can hear all these bands, songs from these bands on 95.7 The Ridge and on the website as well, unless I'm badly mistaken.
That's right. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, when I say a cross-section of our community, I guess I should say more regionally, because Chasing December, they're out of Cartersville. The Kamikaze Dolly, primarily based out of Calhoun, as well as 540.
Gotcha.
The Strange, they're associated mainly with Rome. And then Wolves in D.C., they have members in Rome, but they also have members that are more spread out, I think, in Cartersville and Calhoun. So these bands are from the general area, but not necessarily Rome specifically.
Certainly. More like a Northwest Georgia feel. Definitely want to talk about June 15th. Obviously, I know tickets are on sale right now. How do you get tickets, and what's exactly going to happen on June 15th? Okay,
to answer your first question, in terms of tickets, there are 3 different ways that you can get them. You can go online at DeSotoTheater.com. Again, that's DeSotoTheater.com, and this part is really important. It's theater with an R-E at the end, not E-R.
Gotcha.
So when you type that in, if you type it into the address bar, make sure that you put in DESOTOTHEATRE. Did I say that right?
Yeah. I believe so.
.com. And I'm sure
you would have been good at the Scripps spelling bee.
Yeah, I was about to say, man, I didn't do too well in the spelling bees in school. Hopefully I nailed that one, because this is on camera here. But anyway, you can get them online, DeSotoTheater.com. You can call the box office at the DeSoto Theater at 706 295-7171 and charge them over the phone, or you can go down to 530 Broad Street, which is the actual physical location of the box office at the theater, and you can buy them in person.
Awesome. And now, take us through that evening. What are we going to see?
Okay, well, essentially what's going to happen is the format of the contest will be each band will get up and perform about a 12-minute set. And so you'll see all 5 bands perform. After each band performs, we have got a panel of 5 judges that will assess their performance, give some constructive criticism, make a comment or two, and then we'll move on to the next band.
Gotcha.
Once all 5 bands have performed, the judges will determine the top 2 bands of the evening, and they will move on to a finals sort of round.
Okay.
And they'll get an additional, they will additionally get a 12-minute set of music. So they'll have to play 2 sets of music, the bands that move on to the finals.
Gotcha.
And then after that, we'll have our Judges' Choice Award crowned. And going back to the People's Choice Award, which we've been talking about some, that will not be determined until towards the end of the night. We'll announce the Judges' Choice and the People's Choice at the same time. And so the reason I bring that up is the People's Choice will not be determined until the night is nearly over. So people will have the opportunity to continue to donate to their favorite band. And one of the ways that they can do that is through buying tickets to the show. So when people come in, to support a specific band, we're going to have an opportunity when they come in to put their ticket in a particular place representing that band, and that ticket, they'll get $12 for that ticket since that's how much it costs to get in.
So there's incentive. Obviously, there's only X amount of seats in DeSoto. I mean, I know it can seat a decent amount of people, but you bring 100, 150 people with you, you got a possible new ball game and all the People's Choice Award going on then.
Absolutely. So in other words, like you were alluding to, a ton of incentive for these bands to get out and help, sell tickets and bring their fans in there, because fan support is going to be huge in terms of how things turn out for the People's Choice. Now for the Judges' Choice, and I've actually talked to a couple of bands about this earlier this week, the Judges' Choice is a totally separate issue at this point. I mean, you had to do well in terms of People's Choice to be able to get to this point, but now everybody's on the same level playing field no matter how many votes they have in terms of the Judges' Choice. The judges will decide that based on the performance alone.
Gotcha. That's good. Okay. What do you get if you win the People's Choice or the Judges' Choice?
Okay. Let's see.
I know there's a whole slew of things.
There is, man, and I was actually looking down at my paper to see if I had a list, but I think I can go ahead and knock this out.
Okay.
If you win the Judges' Choice, you will have the opportunity to have your own gig at the Brewhouse Music and Grill, which they're one of our sponsors, and we certainly appreciate that. Not only that, if you win the Judges' Choice, you will also get $500 thanks to the Rome Area Council for the Arts. They've chipped in $500 prize money for the band that wins the Judges' Choice. Now, if you win the People's Choice, then you will have the opportunity to open up for the band that performs at the October 26th Broad Street Block Party downtown.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if anybody of you that are watching this have ever been to one of those events, we're talking about a sea of people.
Packed. Yeah, a lot of people there.
So the exposure opportunity you'll get from that is just going to be extremely valuable for these bands. And then not only that, our buddies over at Stevens Music Company here in Rome, they've put in a $200 gift certificate for the band that wins the People's Choice. And then also the band that wins the People's Choice will also get a studio photography session with a professional photography from Baby Cake Studios. That's Tracy Page. So we've got some really excellent prizes for the winners of the awards. And one of the questions that always pops up is, if I win one of the awards, can I win the other? Yeah, the People's Choice Award winner could end up being the Judges' Choice winner. That could definitely happen. As a matter of fact, it happened last year.
Okay.
So there's no way to know if that's going to happen or not until we get there that night.
Until you show up and find out, exactly.
But it is a possibility. There's no rule against that.
Definitely. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being here. Can't wait. June 15th is really not that far away, only a couple weeks away. Thanks for being here, and hopefully everybody will get out and get some tickets, go to the Battle of the Band, see some great live show.
Support the Cancer Navigators.
Exactly, support Cancer Navigators. Spend more money for your band favorite. Go out and see the show. And this has been another episode of Studio Central Face to Face.